Hey, everybody, and welcome back for another deep dive. You know, the U.S. election was pretty wild, right?
Yeah, for sure.
With Trump's big comeback. And we were kind of curious about reactions to the election.
Right.
So we've been digging around in Newsweek. And, one thing that really jumped out at us was Hamas's response.
Definitely not what you'd expect.
Oh, right? Hamas, not exactly known for being, friendly with the U.S.
Right.
But now they're calling for peace. It's kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So
It is pretty surprising.
yeah. So to wrap our heads around this, we got to look at the whole situation over there.
Absolutely.
Like what's actually going on.
Yeah, this is way more than just a simple conflict. It's a full-on war with Israel, Hamas, Hezbollah, and a bunch of other groups involved.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a huge mess with global implications. So any changes in the power dynamics could have massive consequences.
Okay, so that's like the backdrop, right?
Yeah.
But what did Hamas actually say to Newsweek? What were their exact words?
Yeah.
I'm curious.
They actually said, and I'm quoting here, Palestinians look forward to an immediate cessation of the aggression against our people and look for assistance in achieving their legitimate rights of freedom, independence, and the establishment of their independent self-sovereign state with Jerusalem as its capital.
Whoa, hold on. They're straight up appealing to the U.S. president?
Yeah, pretty bold move.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
So what's the strategy here? Why now? Why reach out to Trump?
Well, you got to consider Trump's history with Netanyahu, that they used to be tight. But recently, Trump's been criticizing Netanyahu's leadership during the war.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So Hamas might be thinking that this rift between them is their chance to get a foot in the door?
So they're hoping Trump will be more on their side now.
It's a gamble for sure. They're playing the long game here, hoping for a change in U.S. policy. But the big question is, how will Israel react to all of this?
Yeah, because they're obviously a major player in all this.
A huge player. An Israeli official told Newsweek that they're confident the U.S.-Israel relationship will stay strong no matter who's in charge. They're projecting this image of stability and business as usual.
Interesting. So Hamas is calling for change and Israel's playing it cool. It's subtle, but definitely a difference in tone.
It definitely shows their different goals. Hamas wants a big shift in U.S. policy, while Israel wants to keep things as they are.
Okay, so we've got Hamas making moves, Israel holding steady. But what about the bigger picture? How might Trump's victory actually impact this whole conflict?
It's super complicated, that's for sure.
Seems like it.
U.S. involvement has always been a tricky thing. You've got Biden, who's giving military aid to Israel, but also getting criticism from both pro-Israel and pro-Palestinian groups. Then you add in Trump's past actions in the Middle East, like the Abraham Accords and his tough stance on Iran. It's a lot to unravel.
And don't forget all his campaign talk about ending wars and not getting involved with Iran. How does that fit with what's happening now? It feels like things could go any which way.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Trump doesn't always do what he says he's going to do. But to figure out what might happen, we should look more closely at what Hamas is actually demanding.
Okay.
They're calling for the U.S. to completely stop supporting Israel and to recognize Palestinian rights. Pretty huge demand.
It's a big one.
Yeah.
And totally different from what Israel wants.
Totally. At the core of the whole conflict.
Yeah.
But there's another key player here, Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinian Authority. He actually congratulated Trump on his win.
Really?
Yeah. Kind of interesting since he condemned Trump's policies before, just like Hamas.
Everyone's trying to figure out how to handle this whole thing.
Exactly. They're both seeing Trump's return as a potential opportunity, even if his past actions don't really support that optimism. Abbas wants peace and U.S. support. But who knows if that'll happen? It's a very complex political landscape.
Okay, so we've got Hamas pushing for change, Israel wanting to keep things the same, and Abbas trying to navigate it all. And then there's Trump, right in the middle of it all.
And he's always full of surprises. That's where things get really interesting. To see where things might go, we need to look back at Trump's past policies, specifically his deal of the century. That's a whole other story, but it's definitely relevant here.
Deal of the century. Huh. So it's kind of dramatic.
Yeah, it was a big deal. Basically, Trump tried to come up with a plan to solve the whole Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but it was pretty controversial.
Controversial? How?
Well, a lot of people thought it gave Israel way too much power. It said that Israel would get to keep control of all the settlements they built in the West Bank, even though that land is technically supposed to be for Palestinians.
Wait, so Israel just gets to keep all that land? What about the Palestinians?
The plan said they would get some land in the desert by Egypt and a bunch of money from other countries, but they also had to give up a lot. Hamas and other Palestinian groups would have to totally disarm, and they have to say that Israel is a Jewish state. They wouldn't even be allowed to join international groups without Israel's permission.
That sounds kind of unfair. No wonder people were upset.
Yeah, the Palestinians totally rejected it, and it didn't get any support from other Arab countries either.
So it was a total failure.
Pretty much. But there's one part that's interesting. The plan had an idea for a tunnel to connect the West Bank and Gaza.
A tunnel? Like underground?
Yeah, like a giant underground highway. It would be a huge deal for the Palestinians if they could travel and trade goods between the West Bank and Gaza easily.
That's actually a pretty cool idea, especially for a plan that was so messed up.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic. But now that Trump's back, some people are wondering if he'll try to bring back parts of his plan.
Do you think that's possible? I mean, things are way different now with the war going on.
It's hard to say Trump likes to bring back his old ideas. He might see this as a chance to reshape the Middle East the way he wants.
But wouldn't it be hard to even talk about peace right now with all the fighting?
Oh, for sure. The conflict makes things way more complicated. If they wanted to make a peace deal, they'd have to figure out a ceasefire and get humanitarian aid to people first. Then they could try to deal with the bigger problems like borders and a Palestinian state.
So even if Trump wants to try again, it's going to be tough.
Super tough. And that's not even considering the politics on both sides. Like in Israel, Netanyahu is getting a lot of criticism for how he's handling the war. And there are different groups who want different things.
And then you've got Hamas and the Palestinian Authority. They're not exactly friends.
Nope, not at all. To make a peace agreement work, both sides would have to be totally united and willing to compromise, which doesn't seem very likely.
It was like trying to do the impossible, basically.
Pretty much. But the point is, it's really hard to predict what's going to happen in this region. But if we understand the history, the key players, and what they want, we can at least try to understand what's going on.
And maybe have some hope for peace?
Maybe. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We still need to talk about the war itself and how the U.S. is involved.
Yeah, right. 'Cause that's a whole other thing. So we've got this war happening. A new president with his own way of doing things.
Right.
And everyone's wondering what's going to happen next. It's like a crazy movie, but in real life.
It really is. And the U.S. is right in the thick of it.
Yeah.
Remember, Biden was trying to balance things out.
Yeah.
Giving military support to Israel, but also trying to keep things calm with pro-Palestinian groups.
Right.
But with Trump back, who knows what'll happen?
Yeah, Trump's approach to the Middle East was, well, a little bit more intense.
To say the least. He wasn't afraid to make big decisions. Like moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, that caused a lot of problems.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
And then there's Iran. Trump pulled out of the nuclear deal and put all the sanctions on them. That really made things tense.
Absolutely. And Iran supports Hamas and Hezbollah. So Trump being tough on Iran could make them more aggressive and make the conflict even worse.
It's like one thing leads to another. One move by the U.S. could set off a chain reaction across the whole region.
Exactly. That's why it's so important to understand all these relationships and the history behind them. We can't just focus on this one conflict. It's all connected.
So let's say Trump goes back to his old ways. More pressure on Iran. Total support for Israel. What could that mean for this war?
It could make things way more unstable. It might make everyone even more determined to fight, and then it would be almost impossible to make peace. It could even spread to other countries and turn into a huge regional war.
Okay, that's not good. What if he does the opposite? What if he tries to make peace, tries to get the Israelis and Palestinians to talk?
That would be a huge surprise. I mean, that's not really how he's acted before. But if he was serious about it, it could be a good thing. Of course, there would be a lot of problems. But even trying to make peace would be a positive step.
So there's a chance he could actually do some good.
There's always a chance. But in the end, it's up to the people involved to find a solution. The U.S. can help, but they can't force anyone to make peace.
Okay, so Trump's victory could make things better or worse. It definitely makes an already complicated situation even more complicated.
For sure. It's a really important moment in history, and no one knows what's going to happen next.
It's a total mystery. But that's what makes these deep dives so interesting. We're all trying to figure this out together.
Exactly. It's all about learning and discovering new things.
So for our listeners who are just as interested in this as we are, here's something to think about. Given what we know about Trump and how unpredictable he is, what do you think he's going to do? How will this affect the Middle East and the rest of the world?
It's a really important question.
Definitely. And remember, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep thinking for yourself. Because in a world this crazy, we need people who are informed and engaged.
Well said.
That's all for today's deep dive. Thanks for listening. We'll be back soon with more stories that matter.